let's get started. You've heard all kinds of things today. Number one, codes. You guys saw the codes in the Torah. You saw some of them anyway. You know, I've over my years, I've got to see, you know, totally outside the scope of discovery. You'll be reading you could just be reading like a regular Torah commentary, and it'll come up with like the craziest codes sometimes that are in there that we've known for thousands of years. But you guys got to see the ones from the computers. ID info. Yeah, all that stuff that like just only God could have known. Yeah? The 7 wonders of Jewish history, totally contradicting different kind of prophecies about what the Jews would go through. And yet, even the contradicting ones, they all came true. Even though some of them should have nullified the others, yet they all come true. And obviously, the biggest wonder of all is, where are we having this class? Right outside the Holy of Holies. Yeah, right outside this room. But now we're going to the ultimate. The ultimate, which is called control. And it's very similar to the others because it's establishing the author of the document called the Torah. The author of the document seems to have total control over creation and displays that control through the actual Torah itself. Meaning the control is proven through the actual text. Let's see what we mean by that. The first principle that you got to get is called Maaseh Avos Siman Labanim, that the actions of our fathers are a sign for the descendants, those who will follow. Okay? So whatever the fathers did is going to repeat itself. Let me show you very quickly what I mean by that. Look up at the board. You got Abraham. Okay? Abraham, I know this is going to sound a lot like the Passover story, but Abraham actually had his own little Passover. Okay? First, he goes to the land of Israel, Canaan. There was a famine in the land. Where'd he head? Egypt. What happened next? They were oppressed. At least Sarah was abducted. I imagine she cries out, please God save me. And what happens? Pharaoh gets plagued. And they wind up heading out of Pharaoh's house with a bunch of wealth. Well, didn't that sound familiar? Sounds like our Passover story. Only our Passover story was about Jacob. Jacob's family, right, started in Canaan. There was a famine in the land. Then they go down to Egypt, and they were oppressed. Then they cry out. Then there was plagues, and then, of course, the Jews go out with all the wealth of Egypt. Please say amen to a blessing. Well, we're not sure, actually, if you should say amen yet, because we don't know who the author is. But if it's God, let's say amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. Amen. Okay, guys, let's go. Abraham. Yeah. Who was Abraham's son? Isaac. Wrong. Yishmael. He had a first son. Yishmael, the father of the Palestinians. Okay. And then he had Isaac. Okay. First Yishmael, then Isaac. Okay. Let's keep it going here. Who did Isaac have? Esau. Oh, very good. First he had Esau. And then he had Yaakov. Okay, very good. And why is that so important for us? Because we're not called B'nai Avraham. We are not called B'nai Yitzchak. We are called B'nai Jacob, or what's his other name? Israel. B'nai Yisrael. Okay, and it's really important because there seems to have been some kind of breeding going on here, where like God was like breeding off things until we could have a Jacob. Okay. What we're going to see is Jacob going through 3 battles and the Jewish people going through 3 battles. We're going to take those 3 battles that Jacob went through as the original battles, and then that's going to be a sign for the children where there will be 3 battles for the children. Okay, 3 and 3. Notice the third didn't pop up there. It's all right. Every program's different. Okay? Okay, number 1 is just Jacob and Esau. Jacob and Esau are on this fight. There are going to be 3 of them. The first one has to do with who really inherits, first of all, who inherits Jacob, simply who inherits their father. That's the birthright. Another thing, because the firstborn gets a double portion, and Esau's going to sell his portion because he's into like immediate gratification. Esav's like the father of Western Civ. Like today, the top of Western Civ is America's. You could call it like the United States of Esav. Okay, it's Esav's attributes are just like, think about today, don't worry about tomorrow. Can you get it now? You know, get it now. So Esav, for example, sold his birthright for a bowl of soup. Why? Because the bowl of soup's later. Sorry, the bowl of soup's now, and the birthright's later. So he's thinking about now. Like, how can we get that now? The birthright. What's another thing that Jacob managed to kind of snake Esav out of? The blessing. The blessing over who's gonna ultimately be the Jewish people. Isaac wanted Esav to be the Jewish people. Rebekah wanted Yaakov to be the inheritor of the Jewish people. So it's the birthrights, the blessings. Who wins in the end? Do you guys know the story at all where Jacob wears these furry arms because Esau was furry? And Isaac's blind, so he's like feeling his arms. And he's like, he feels furry, but he sounds like Jacob. What's going on? Did Jacob like get furry? Or did Esau have a voice change or something? But long story short, who gets the blessing? Yeah, Jacob gets that one. So Israel wins that one. Okay. Now, very important, you have to know, Esau has a nickname. It's a nickname that was brought about because of the red lentil soup. But it's also said that this furball of a kid, he was born with a full, like, very furry guy. And he was of red fur. Okay, Edom means red. Okay, who wins? Round one goes to Jacob. That's right. Round two. Okay, round two. By the way, that 22 it's part of the program. Okay, what happened was Esav says, "I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill him." Yeah, and Jacob's like, I believe him. So Jacob runs for 22 years. He disappears for 22 years. That's the whole story of Jacob's ladder. And then he goes up into Syria, and then he marries 4 women. Okay, and now all of a sudden he realizes, for various reasons, that it's time to come back to the land of Israel. Maybe Esav will maybe he's off my case. I mean, 22 years, plenty of years. Maybe he's cooled off. After 22 years, I can come back to the land of Israel, especially with the birth of Joseph. So after Joseph's born, the 11th kid, they're on their way back to the land of Israel. But guess what? Who's waiting at the border? It's Esav. He must have an amazing satellite machine. Because how after 22 years, Esav knows that it's the day to show up on the border with 400 men to kill a guy in his family. I don't know what you need 400 men to kill a guy in his family, but whatever. He comes with 400 men to kill Jacob and his family. Now, why am I emphasizing this whole subject of him somehow knowing after 22 years? Because Esav actually has inside of him a little alarm system whenever it has to do with the Jewish people and the land of Israel, yeah? Whether it's the birthright and the blessings for Israel, or it's Jacob coming back to Israel, somehow Esav always has this little alarm detector that says, ring, 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 ring. Jacob's coming back, and he comes to attack. Now, Jacob knows, what is Esav into? What is Esav into? How do we trick Esav? We've tricked him in the past with immediate gratification. We can trick him again with immediate gratification. So what does he do? Instead of just coming in to meet him, he starts sending gifts. Flocks. In those days, gifts were flocks. So he's sending sheep, he's sending goats, he's sending calves, he's sending rams, he's sending everything. And Esav just keeps going, for me, for me, for me, for me. I just don't know what to say. And of course a beautifully knitted sweater and all kinds of other, little boxes of chocolate. He's just giving him every gift you could possibly send a guy. And anyway, when Jacob approaches, Esav's like, you shouldn't have. It's going to get a little off the wall here for a second. You know what that means, but that doesn't belong in this present. Okay. Now, who wins? Jacob wins that one too. He's in the land. Yeah. You should know I'm a brother with 3 other brothers, all from the same mother. Yeah, we are 4 boys. And I love my brothers very much, and I miss my brothers. And anytime me and my brothers get together, it's like the most beautiful thing. So what did Jacob say to Esau? Jacob says to him, what happened? Esau wanted to travel with him, but Jacob didn't trust him. So Jacob's like, why don't you go on ahead and we'll catch up with you. I mean, I got these little kids with me, and I have some young flock. They can't move at your pace. You go on up ahead. So Esau's like, okay, we'll meet you up in the land. What did Jacob do? As soon as Jacob gets left alone, he immediately cuts a left and never shows up. That really bothered me. You know why? Because it wasn't true. He lied. He lied to him. So I went to a rabbi at Aish. I was brand new. My hair looked somewhere between yours and yours at the time. I had lots of hair. And I went up to a rabbi at Aish and I said, Jacob lied. It was wrong. He lied to Esau. Here was this brother reunion and he lied. He says he didn't lie. He didn't lie. First of all, you are allowed to lie to save your life, but he didn't lie. They are going to meet. They're going to meet in the end of days. In our generation, probably, is when we're going to meet. So in the end, they will meet. And the last fight between the two has to do with Jacob's death. Jacob dies in Egypt. He swears his son Joseph. How do you say that properly? He doesn't swear his son Joseph. How do you say nishba? Yeah, but I guess there's no word in Hebrew, in English. Now I'm looking for a word. He oathed him. He oathed him. There is no word on that. Anyway, in Hebrew you can oath somebody. I'm oathing you, brother. Okay? I'm oathing you, you know. Yeah, so anyway, he oathed him, and that he oathed him that he bury him in the land of Israel. Now, there's a whole Kabbalistic thing about Hebron. Whoever gets buried in Hebron is going to get the land. Even King David couldn't rule Jerusalem until he ruled first in Hebron for 7 years. There's something about Hebron, it's like the key to the land of Israel. So if you ever hear, like, for example, I don't know, the government discussing Hebron and, like, do they really need it? And it's such a hassle, and the Arabs are always angry, and, you know, why do we need Hebron? You should know, we need Hebron. Hebron is the key. Our presence in Hebron is probably how we're sitting here, or people are right now, you know, jet skiing in Tel Aviv or the Canary. Okay, Hebron's key. It is the key. So whoever's buried there makes a big difference. Now it's time for the burial. And guess what? They have the whole procession. The dignitaries of Egypt are in the procession. They make their way into the land of Israel. In fact, even the nations around came in for a little attack or a burial once they realized they had to behave themselves with the Egyptian dignitaries. They're actually going to attack Israel at the funeral. And they, when they saw all the Egyptian dignitaries, they all, like, you know, took off their hats and went like that during the burial. But in fact, they were coming to get the Jews at Jacob's burial. And anyway, they get to the grave. And guess who's standing at the mouth of the cave where Jacob was supposed to be buried? I'll give you a little hint. He's really furry and red. Okay? Esau is standing there with sword drawn, saying, Jacob's not going to be buried there. I'm going to be buried there. Yeah? And he's preventing the burial from taking place. Turns out that one of Jacob's grandkids didn't have a sense of hearing. All he saw was the indignation to his grandfather. And he just took out a sword and, you know, kind of lopped off Esau's head, which rolled into the cave, so Esau wasn't all wrong. He wound up in there. Not exactly the way he was planning. And of course the burial procession ended, and they kept Esau's head inside the cave. Some say America's Esau's head. Because remember, Western Civ is Esau. So they say Europe, that killed us. Yeah, they were the body of Esau. And America that you know, treated us benevolently, but of course we lost just as many through assimilation with them, are the head of Esau. Yeah, so they're the friendly Esau, who, you know, we haven't done so hot with all their friendship. Okay? So that's the burial. Who wins? Once again, oh, here we go. These are who are buried there. It's called the Machpelah, the cave in Hebron. It's a double cave. It's got like an upstairs and a downstairs with a kind of a window between them, like a place between them. And these are who are buried there. Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rivka, and of course, the dispute. Jacob, yes. How many points? We're 3 for 3, okay? Israel wins all 3, and now we're ready to launch into history. Just got to tell you a little more about Esau because we're going into history. So Edom had a kid named, he has the Edomites, and who's Jacob going to have? The Israelites, okay? That doesn't mean less fat. It just means less guilt, maybe. So, the Israelites. And our first attack is by Amalek. The Jews leave Egypt after the plagues and everything. We leave Egypt, splitting of the sea. We're making our way through the desert. All the nations in the world are like, whoa, because like our God just decimated the most powerful country in the world. So everyone's like running for their lives, except for who? Amalek comes in for the kill to get Israel. Yeah, on their way to the land. Remember how it works. Whenever the Jews, first Jacob and now the Jews, whenever the Jews are going to the land of Israel, who comes to attack? Before it was whom? Esau. Yeah, Esau. But after that, who's it going to be? Amalek. Who is Amalek? Let's check out Esau's line. Esau had Eliphaz. Eliphaz is his son. And Eliphaz marries his daughter Timnah, by the way, which is not exactly what you're supposed to do, but they had Amalek, okay? Amalek represents like the most evil of all of Esau. I mean, if you took a syringe of Esau's worst evil and like put it in the fetus of Timnah, yeah, you get Amalek. By the way, try not to name your kids things like Eliphaz and like Timnah and all those cool biblical names, you know. We don't name our kids any of those names up there. If you have a girl, don't name her Timnah, okay? So they attacked Israel, and Israel won that battle and continued on their way to the land of Israel, okay? The next is we go into the land of Israel, and we build the first temple. And then we are thrown into exile by the ruler of Babylon. Who wants to tell me, besides the girls in the back, who was the king of Babylon? You got it. Who's that, Ellie Goldberg over there? Is that Ellie? Are you Ellie Goldberg? Yeah. Hi, Ellie Goldberg. Is that Victor? What was his name? Nebuchadnezzar. Very good. Everyone practice that long name. Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. Okay. So he was a really, really evil dude, and he destroyed the first temple. Okay, he destroyed the first temple, and that particular exile was a 70-year exile, not longer, 70 years. But guess who's going to show up? Who would show up, according to what we've said, on the 70th year when we're going to go back into the land? Who always shows up? Amalek's going to come back. Whenever we're going back to the land, that's where Amalek shows up. And now Amalek obviously has a new name at this point. What's his new name? Haman. Who is Haman? Haman is the direct descendant of the king of Amalek. Okay? He's called Haman HaGagi, actually. In the Megillah, he's called Haman HaGagi. Okay? And who wins the battle? Who wins in the end in the Purim story? We do. Kind of seems a little one-sided, this whole thing, doesn't it? We won the first 3, and now, so far, Amalek, we beat him in war. Haman attacks, we beat him. Let's find out a little bit of Haman, just to check it out. In the scroll of Esther, what is he called? Haman, what's he called? Ha'agagi, or what's it say in English? Agagite. The Agagite. Who's the Agagite? Look at Samuel the prophet. Samuel the prophet. Okay, who's the king of Amalek? Agag. Okay. Just a little trivial stuff is in the story of Haman, he rolls dice to see which day to get the Jews. What's on the opposite side of dice? What's it always equal? If there's a 1 on one side, what's there on the other side? A 6, right? It always equals 7. If there's a 3 on one side, it's a 4 on the other side. So it turns out that the word for Agag is Aleph, Gimel, Gimel. So on one side's Aleph, what's going to be on the opposite side? A 6, which is what? A Vav, right? And then the Gimels, what's going to be on the opposite side? 4s, which is Dalet, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet. So it's Vav and 2 Dalets. You know what that spells? So he was excited because he saw his grandfather, Agag, on the dice. He's like, oh, that's the day. But you know what it spells on the opposite side? When you flip over the whole story? David, Dalet, Vav, Dalet, Mashiach, David, Dalet, Vav, Dalet is the opposite side of those dice. Okay? We win that battle. And now the third and final battle. Can I give you a little history first? We rebuild the second temple after the Purim story. It's destroyed by whom? Who destroys the second temple? Huh? Romans, excellent. Together, who destroys the second temple? Romans. The Romans. Yeah, we don't like the Romans. Okay? They bad, and not the good kind of bad. Okay? So, they sick and not the good kind of sick. Okay? So, anyway, the Romans destroy the second temple. So far, Amalek's gone total sleeper cell this whole time. Meaning after Haman, we're off the hook from Amalek for quite a period of time. And the Romans destroy the temple, and the Jews get spread all over the earth. And for the next close to 2,000 years, we don't hear a thing from Amalek except what was about to happen in 1948. What was about to happen? In the 30s, we're on our way. What's about to happen in 1948? State of Israel. Jews are going to be coming back on the wings of eagles. They're coming home. We're coming home. Yeah? Jews are heading back into the land. Yeah? And from all around, we had Operation Magic Carpet coming from the Sephardic countries, and we had from Teman, and we had the operation from Morocco. They're coming over, and they got them from all of Europe are coming. The Jews are coming back to the land. Which means, several years before then, we're probably going to hear from whom? Amalek. And there he is. The Nazis show up. Nazis. Right before we come into the land, we get attacked by the Nazis. Now, I know that probably sounds a little weird to a lot of you because you were taught like in your like regular Hebrew schools that like because of the Holocaust we got to have the land of Israel. And you know what I'm saying? You know, they have that whole thing. So it's pretty interesting from this perspective. It's kind of hard to figure out which came first here because we have a pattern for thousands of years that whenever we're coming into land, we get attacked by these monsters, whether it was Esav or, in this case, now Amalek. Yes?
If we say that Amalek is an actual nation, not just like a philosophy and idea of hating Jews, of a baseless hatred against Jews,
yeah.
How are we necessarily saying the Nazis as opposed to the Arabs or a specific group nowadays is Amalek?
Excellent question. Maybe other groups are Amalek. So Amalek's interesting. Let's go to Amalek really specific because Arabs actually circumcise, for example, their kids at around 13. Sounds like a bummer to me. So let's open up our books here and see who Amalek really is. Please turn to page 75 in your books. You have a book over there? Need a book? We got more books. Okay, everyone turn to page 75. There was a great Kabbalist who lived last century, or 2 centuries ago. He lived from 1823 to 1900, the bottom left corner of 75. He actually tells us who Amalek is. So I appreciate your question. What's your name, sir? Yaakov, thank you. What's your last name?
Hawk.
Huck?
Hawk.
Hawk.
Like a bird.
Gotcha. Spelled that way?
Yes.
Nice. Okay, we're going to hear all about Amalek now. 3 major signs about Amalek. Number 1, in man's heart. See where we are? In man's heart, Amalek is the power that freezes man, causing him to see only absurd chance and therefore deny an ethical conscience and the moral perfection it entails. Meaning Amalek's like really against morality, and he likes this whole fact of pure chance. Like God's not involved. Does not sound like Arabs. Okay? Nor does it sound like Christians. Okay? Number 2, in the physical body, Amalek fights to destroy the sanctity of Brit Milah, the covenant of circumcision. He's super anti-bris. I don't know what his problem is, but he just doesn't like the bris. Yeah. Number 3, in space, Amalek covets the land of Israel and is sworn, check this out, and is sworn to prevent Israel from attaining its perfection, which is interdependent with its dwelling in the land. Go tell that to the Satmar Rebbe. Yeah? And number 4, and the last one, in the history of mankind, oh no, this is just a conclusion. This isn't a fourth, this is just conclusion. In the history of mankind, Amalek symbolizes the foremost evil amongst the nations and has always risen up to destroy Israel when the time of redemption is imminent. But his end will be eternal annihilation, for evil and those who embody its values are destined to non-existence. Whoa. Seemed like this rabbi knew that, that the Jews are going to get nailed, around this time. By the way, I think I might have a Hitler quote in here. Turn to page 76. Check out Hitler over here. On the bottom right. Hitler stated, "It is true we are barbarians is an honorable title. I free humanities from the shackles of the soul, from the degrading suffering caused by the false vision called conscience and morality." Whoa, straight out of Reb Tzadok HaKohen. But he goes on. "The Jews have inflicted 2 wounds on mankind. Circumcision on its body and conscience on its soul." There you got double whammy right there. These are Jewish inventions? "The war for world domination will be fought entirely between us, the Germans and the Jews. All else is facade and illusion." What? Like World War II is a facade and illusion? It was really about the gas chambers? This is a guy out of his mind. But yes, Amalek's out of its mind, just like the suicide mission of Amalek in the desert when they came after the Jews. No one would mess with the Jews after Egypt. They don't care. They're going on a suicide mission to get the Jews. Because they don't think about things. They're just out to prevent us from attaining our interdependent relationship to the land of Israel. Crazy, right? Anyway, that was a very long answer. Jacob? Josh? Yaakov? Jacob? Yaakov? I got it right the first time, just the wrong language. Okay, yeah. What's your name? Sammy. Yeshua.
Is it because of their lack of conscience and morality that they're the only nation where we are supposedly commanded to kill them? Or what reasons bring us to such hatred, crimes on people that may not have directly done something to us physically?
Yeah, Amalek's the only nation that we're not supposed to be very humane to. We're supposed to just get rid of those guys. It's a strange thing. I mean, we're really benevolent to all the nations of the world, even ones that thrashed us throughout history. But with Amalek, we have a zero tolerance thing going on with them. I think it's that they're at war with God. Meaning everything's in polarity, so if there's a nation called Israel, there has to be an opposite nation. And until they're destroyed, we can't really come to perfection as long as they exist. And so they have to be somehow stopped. By the way, we don't know who they are today. The Yalkut Shimoni, a commentary.
If we say they're the Nazis, though, then wouldn't that just mean that they're the same German people?
Maybe. It's really returned there. When I visited Germany, when I was like a punk with a guitar, they were so friendly when they found out I was Jewish and stuff, but it's not like that anymore.
So friendly, but they're so anti-bris milah and shechita and all that.
Yeah. No, they're back to who they were before. Germans act like that now.
Yeah. No, right now they're very, very anti-shechita.
They're also anti-Jews.
Again?
Oh yeah, they're all back to the way they used to be now.
When did you travel in Germany?
I traveled there in the 90s. I went to Pink Floyd, The Wall, at the Berlin Wall when it went down. It's like they were all super cool with Jews then, but now they're right back to where they started. Yeah.
I just have to take issue with one thing.
Yes.
That the suicide bombers today,
Yeah.
people that just feel it's okay to celebrate murdering our kids. That besides the bris, I don't really see the big difference between them and Amalek. And
I'm glad you bring that up.
It bothered me that source kind of
Free the
they wanna
Islamic.
stop their whole thing is they want to stop the Jews from living in Eretz Yisrael. That's it. They make claims on places that were never important to them.
I like what this lady's saying. And I'll tell you something else. The Yalkut Shimoni, which is a commentary, midrashic commentary, that, you know what it says? It says that Amalek and Yishmael mixed. that they interbreeded, Amalek and Yishmael. So she's not so far off.
It's hard to believe that they didn't.
Yeah. Chaim.
Why are you saying that the Nazis are the ones that are more like maybe by the Spanish position all the killed Jews the last 200 years?
Right. So Hitler matched very well, but perhaps then also, well, they did that in the name of JC. That was God, so it wasn't against conscience and morality. And but they weren't into bris milas, so maybe you got it there. But watch this, Chaim. Okay? Now, obviously, we shouldn't get a point here, and that doesn't belong in this prezi because we lost a third of our people because of these monsters. So, they lost the war, but we certainly shouldn't have a point on this prezi. But we did lose, big time we lost. But the truth is we are here. We are here and they're gone. They're in the dust of history like all the other nations. So whoever made this prezi gave him a point. Okay, and there is a point to that point. But it's a major claim. How can we call the Nazis Amalek? Well, let's check it out from two different sources. Let's start with the Talmud, and then we'll go to the Megillah. Okay? Starting with the Talmud. The Talmud has the following statement. It's a question, which means it should be Rav Yitzchak asked, but it says, Amar Rav Yitzchak. Here's the question. What is meant by the verse? This is in Psalms. King David wrote this. O God, don't grant the desires of the evil man, and don't let him draw out his bit, lest he raise himself above others. Guys, please read that together so you remember that, because you got to get the content. Again, together, Rav Yitzchak said, this is Psalms. What is meant by the verse, O God, don't grant the desires of the evil man, and don't let him draw out his bit, lest he raise himself above others. Now let me explain a little bit to you guys. First of all, there's something about not letting this evil man get what he wants. And the second part, you guys know what a bit is? A lot of people don't know that today. A bit is what you put in a horse's mouth when you have reins. And when you pull it tight, it stops. So you don't want him to draw it out, because if you draw it out, what's going to happen? He's going to raise himself above others. So you want to keep the bit tight in the evil man's mouth. Again, this is King David writing. Now, when King David writes, you should know something about the Psalms. He writes in the names of all kinds of people. He was literally channeling down people. Like Adam Arishon wrote Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos, the Shabbos song we sing. That was Adam. Adam's song. David wrote it. Adam kind of brought it down, or he brought it down from Adam. There's songs that David wrote that are from Moses. Tefillah LaMoshe. The children of Korach, he wrote down their songs. King David was like an open channel for people throughout history to write down their songs. So guess who was speaking here? The bit we described. Okay? Who is this speaking? Who's speaking? Jacob, our forefather, said to God, don't grant the desires of the evil man. This refers to Esav. And don't let him draw out his bit. This refers to Gemamia of Edom. What? By the way, Germany is called Germania throughout history. Germany is a modern name for it. What? Jacob's worrying about a place called Germany that's only going to become like a real nation thousands of years later? And this is in our Talmud, being written in Babylon before Germany actually became much more than, just a hodgepodge of city-states. And what does the rest mean? And don't let him draw his bit. This refers to Gemamia of Edom, for should they go forth, they would destroy the entire world. Well, isn't that weird? Because what do you think the bit is? If Germany always remains sliced into hundreds of city-states, guess what the bit is? Disunity. A man came along in the late 1900s named Bismarck and unified Germany. And what happened immediately? World War I. The Allied nations win the war after gigantic casualties. Hitler rises to power at a time of 55% intermarriage in Germany. In the 30s, believe it or not. That's when Hitler rises to power. And he unites Germany again, and immediately World War II and the Holocaust. And we have all the way back to Jacob, or at least David, or at least the Talmud. But no one should be talking about Germany, okay? But it gets even better. We discussed Edom, thank you. It gets even better. Look at this part of the Talmud. This gets crazy, guys. Rabbi Chama Bar Chanina said, there are 300 crown princes in Germania of Edom and 365 chieftains in Rome. Okay? You see the 300 crown princes? Check this out. This is called The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. This is a modern book. By the end of the Middle Ages, which had seen Britain and France emerge as unified nations, Germany remained a crazy patchwork of some 300 individual states. How does the Talmud know that? And it stays that way. It's like Talmud somehow nails this number. And also it's such a random line. Like, why is the Talmud even bringing up such stuff? What does that have to do with Jewish law? To find out that Germania has 300, states. Disunity's the bit. Fighting with Rome, I have no idea what that's doing up here. Okay? There's the bastard himself. That was the Talmud. Now we're going into the Megillah, guys. Okay? Is anyone familiar with this particular page of the Megillah? When you read the Megillah, it looks like, the whole page looks like this. Every page looks like that. All of a sudden, you get to this weird page where it has the word "and" on this side, and on this side, it has the 10 names of Haman's sons, okay, that were killed that day. Okay? So these are the 10 names. We have to say it all in one breath. Yeah? Say it in one breath. This is the English of it. Yeah? And the Jews struck at their enemies with the sword. You guys following? I'm just translating that page in English. And the Jews struck at the enemies with their sword, and with slaughter and destruction, and did as they pleased to those who hated him. In Shushan, the capital, now this is the capital city. In Shushan, the capital, the Jews slew and destroyed 500 men, including Parshandasa, Vesdalphon, Vespasasa, Vesporasa, Vesadali, Vesavidasa, Vesparmasha, Vesorisa, Vesvaidida, Vesvaizasa. You have to say it in one breath on Purim, so I'm just practicing. The 10 sons of Haman, son of Dan, the enemy of the Jews, but they do not have in the hands of the spoils. Now, are those guys alive or dead, everybody? Together? Dead. How dead? Very dead. Okay? Okay. That same day, the number of those killed in Shushan, the capital, was reported to the king. Who's the king? Achashverosh. Very good. But what if it doesn't say Achashverosh? Who's it referring to? It's referring to God. And Achashverosh. Yeah, did you guys know that? And whenever it says the king, because it never says God's name in the Megillah. Never says God's name in the Megillah. And so when it says the king, it's talking about also God. Okay? Now Queen Esther, these are good times now because, Haman's been hung. His 10 sons have been hung. They've stopped the decree of genocide against the Jews. Again, that same day, the number of those killed in Shushan, the capital, was reported to the king. The king said to Queen Esther, in Shushan, the capital, the Jews have slain and destroyed 500 men. Sorry, 500, I don't know what's going on with me. 500, including the 10 sons of Haman. Are they alive or dead, guys? What have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? What is your request now? It shall be granted to you. What is your petition for? It shall be fulfilled. Now, this is the first time that the king has offered Esther anything. Meaning, other times he said, what can I do for you? I'll give you anything but Jerusalem. You can't get Jerusalem. You can have anything, not Jerusalem. This is the first time King Ahasuerus has said, you can have anything. You could even get Jerusalem. And she's already told him she's Jewish. And now she's like, you know what? Now the king's like, you could even build Jerusalem. And in fact, their son, Esther had a son with the king Ahasuerus, and he paid for the rebuilding of the second temple. So now he's saying you can have that. Now, if you're Esther and you've been offered everything from the king, what do you ask for? Let my people go. Let us go back to Israel and rebuild the temple. Let's get out of here. Yeah? That's one. What's another thing? If it's God, what do you ask for? Also, let us go. And also, like Mashiach, like you're giving me anything? Esther's a prophetess, man. She's close to God. You're giving me anything, God, king? But what happens? Esther goes temporarily insane and says the following. Esther replies, if it pleases the king, allow the Jews of Shushan to do tomorrow as they have done today, and let Haman's 10 sons be hung on the gallows. The king ordered that this be done. What? Esther, you lost it. It's like, talk about anticlimactic, Aladdin wishes, like you can get whatever you want, lady. And she asks, this is straight out of the Megillah, we're not making this stuff up. Queen Esther asks the 10 dead men get hung. Not today, tomorrow. I don't know what her problem was with that day. It was like the wind was blowing the wrong direction. It might smell up the house, So I've heard with the weather report tomorrow is a better day for this. Why not today? Well, ladies and gentlemen, when a prophetess says the word tomorrow, what might she mean? The future. Meaning, yes, hang those 10 dead guys tomorrow. But the reason why is because there's going to be another hanging, ain't there? We did that. And there you have it, guys. That's a copy of the New York Times, 1946, October 16th. And what did it say there? Look carefully. It says, you can't really see it, but 10 men. No, how are you supposed to see that? Did they show it? They showed it the first time? Anyways, 10 men. By the way, one committed suicide. If you read that paper there. Oh, it's here. You got it here? Yeah, they got it up here on page 78. Goring ends life by poison. Did Haman have a daughter? Yeah, he had one daughter. How'd she die? She commits suicide. She commits suicide. And here we have one ends life by poison. And 10 others are hanged in Nuremberg, prison for Nazi war crimes. Doom men on the gallows pray for Germany. That's the picture you saw. Weird, huh? Especially when hanging was not how Germany killed people. Germany kills people clean. They don't just hang people. Okay? They hadn't hung people in Germany for a long time. It was 1946. Germany poisoned people or gave them lethal shots or something like that. They hung them. Yeah, but in the war crime, meaning in court, they didn't hang. Court, like real courts, they gave lethal injections. So look, guys, we're just going to check out the dates real quick. What is October 16th in the Jewish calendar? It's Hoshana Rabbah. Okay, what's Hoshana Rabbah? Hoshana Rabbah, look in the Zohar here, in the Vayikra 3:16. What's it say there? Will you read for us, please? Kidding. I'm kidding. On the seventh day of the Sukkot holidays, i.e. Hoshana Rabbah, the judgment of the nations of the world is finalized. Sentences are issued from the residence of the king. Judgments are aroused and executed on that day. What? Judgment day for the nations. Hoshana Rabbah is a crazy day to do this. But you want to hear something even crazier? Guess when the sentencing was? It was in June. They should have been hung in June. But what's the problem with June? Well, you'll see. That's October. Yeah, just teach you a little bit about dates. You guys know anything about dates? How we call the dates according to the letters? Raise your hand if you don't know about the letters and the dates. Do you know that we call the Hebrew years according to the letters? Raise your hand if you didn't know that. Okay, so I'll just give that over real quick. This year, for example, is called, our year right now is called Taf Shin, which means 400 plus 300 is 700. Ayin, and 770 Today, this is last year's, but Dalet. 5774. What year are we in from Adam? 5774. Taf, Shin, Ayin, Dalet. When was the Nuremberg trials? So let me just bust through this real quick. It just talks about how letters are numbers. Okay? Showing last year. Do you see how that works? Okay. It doesn't. It only ends up at 773. And it doesn't give the millennia.
No, it's hey, really, but we just shortened it.
We know the millennia. It was really hard to get confused with the millennia, so we skip the millennia. We know, everyone knows it's 5,774. Okay. Is that cool? You get that? Everyone understands? So Taf is 400 plus Shin is 300. What's that? 700. And what's the 73? Ayin is 70. Gimel is 3. Okay. There it is. Clear? Okay, 773. You ready for this, guys? This is going to get a little freaky here. Do you guys notice something weird in these letters here? Look at the names. Parshandasa, Dalphon. You notice some weird letters in there? Some small letters? See that little Taf? These are the names of Haman's kids. That little baby Taf there, yeah, shows up in every Megillah. I have a Megillah upstairs, actually, where we usually do this class. There's a Megillah upstairs. I could show it to you right on the parchment. Okay, my Megillah at home, my son-in-law's Megillah, I just bought him for their wedding. They all have a little Taf. Scribes have never understood, at least until 1946, why there's a little Taf. Taf. Shin. Write in the names of the sons. Zion. Taf Shin Zion. Ladies and gentlemen, Taf Shin Zion is 5707. It's October 16, 1946. Taf Shin Zion. And it even gets better because you heard Sammy saying, well, what about the millennia? Guess what? Every Megillah, when it gets to the last name, you get the actual letter Vav. And what's Vav? 6, or otherwise known as the 6 millennia. Right? 707, 2 is 1707, 3 is Gimel, 2707, 4 is Dalet, 3707, 5, 4707, and the 6, which is the letter Vav, right? Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, 5707. And when you open up that Megillah, guess what? Look at that last name. Vizos, a giant Vav in every Megillah. In my Megillah, it's like an inch long. It's gigantic. Okay? Look at that giant Vav. In every Megillah for 2,500 years, it's got that Vav. And the Zohar says a lot about this Vav. It's a shame they don't put... Oh, you know what? It's in your books. Page 79. 79, the bottom there. And when the 6th millennium, represented by the Vav of God's name, is about to begin, then the final hay of the name will be lifted up from the dust of the exile. Now, if you know anything about Amalek and that final hay, he's there to prevent the final hay. If you know, you got to know a bit of Torah for this. He's there to prevent that final hay from ever landing. That's Yad al Kes Ka. Those who know that Haftorah, you know, we do where we slam Amalek, will be raised up from the dust of the exile. Now, guys, you starting to get the picture of what's going on here? The only thing that would get better than what we've already shared about the Nazis being kind of that last battle of the 3 battles, the only thing that would get better is if the Nazis themselves were somehow aware of it. I mean, wouldn't that get weird? Because we weren't aware of it. When we were getting killed by those Nazis, we didn't know what was going on. We had no idea that those names in the Megillah had those small letters because of 1946. We had to pass 1946 to finally figure this out. And I think we passed it quite a bit before we ever figured it out. But what if the Nazis themselves knew all along what they were up to? So I'm going to skip to the last part of this Newsweek article. It's also in your book. But this is straight out of the Newsweek article. Basically, the rest of the article up there was all about the different hangings of each guy. But when they got to the last guy, a guy by the name of Julius Streicher, look what it says. Only Julius Streicher went without dignity. He had to be pushed across the floor, wild-eyed and screaming Heil Hitler. Mounting the steps, he cried out, "And now I go to God." He stared at the witnesses facing the gallows and shouted, "Purim Fest, 1946. This Nazi called out when no one knew what was going on. And even this class was only developed later when they finally realized, like decades later. Somehow, the Nazis knew. Amalek knows who he is. The question is, do we know who we are? Do we know who we are? We are the most confused people today. I mean, we are like totally without a compass. Yeah, myself included. I mean, I'm holding on by my fingernails. You know, I'm trying to keep my kids, on board. Amalek knows. Do we know? And perhaps what this day is all about is the answer is yes. You not only can you know, but you do know. The Discovery Seminar is a very special seminar because, first of all, just the fact that it lets you stop calling it the Torah and lets you call it a document for a day. That it stops calling it God and says, who's the author? Documents have authors. And can we somehow see that a man couldn't have written it? I think it's pretty plain and simple by all levels of common sense, beyond a shadow of a doubt. Human beings don't write things like this. There's no way to pull this baby off. You can't pull it off. And remember all those codes you saw? Okay, those were in Genesis. Genesis is powerful, full of Kabbalah and everything. You know what this book is? This is way later. This is like the last book they even agreed to include in our Torah was Esther's book, Esther the prophetess. Okay, Esther, yeah, you're in. And they put her book in. This is like an afterthought, and look what's in there. And you start to realize that God's saying hello to you right now. God's giving a personal hello in there. I'm with you. And if you think it's over, it ain't over. Meaning, whatever we're going through in life as Israel, as these Arabs throughout our nation are going crazy because somehow we've invited them into our establishments and our roads and our lives here in Israel. And it seems like it's a problem that can't be solved and maybe we're really in trouble. No. This comes along to let you know that we've had our major battles. There were 3 battles between Jacob and Esau. There were 3 major times that Amalek shows up to prevent Israel from achieving its connection to the land. The third and final time was the third and final time we moved in big time. The roads are set up. The hospitals are there. The army's in place. We now own, since the 6-day war, a miraculous 6-day battle. We get basically our biblical borders back. This class you're hearing is across from the Holy of Holies, which is now in Israel's jurisdiction, although we somehow give Arabs permission to desecrate it. But it's all the pieces are in place. And all this stuff you learned today from all the computers and all the stuff we know now, it becomes quite obvious what's up. And the question really remains is, do you have the strength? It's all in the end going to be a matter of strength. Do you have the strength to start doing pull-ups with the Jews? Can you do the pull-ups? Kosher, Shabbos, Can you do all that stuff? Because in the end, intellectually, it's clear. But let me put it another way. I want you to imagine that, I guess I'll move the board to here. Can you imagine that this wall over here is Sinai, and this wall over here is the times of, let's say that's 6,000 years. Okay, so let's say here's Mashiach, because it's got to come before 6,000. Let's say this is Mashiach, yeah? So in the end, we're all in exile, and then eventually you have to come into the land of Israel, and then you have to have all the people, coming into Israel. These are the people. Okay, you have to have the people coming into Israel, and things have to happen at the end. But where would you say we are, guys, in history. Because God's batting 1,000. If you start at Sinai there, and you just go, we left Egypt, we get the Torah at Sinai, and then we come out the desert, build the first temple, okay, Babylonian exile, Purim story, second temple, Roman exile, okay, a couple thousand years go by, and then what's happened, and we come back into the land, which didn't start in 1940. This started in 1800s with the first Aliyah, and Jerusalem was built in the 1800s by very pious Jews of Europe. But then 1948 comes, and now, right around now, this year, according to the Israeli census, we're hitting a majority of Jews on earth, which is, according to the Rambam, that's the ingathering. It's only a majority. You don't need everybody. You just need a majority. Okay? But where would you say we are right now? Where are we on this project called the Destiny of Israel? Where are we? Where should I stop my finger, guys? Where do I stop? Let's just say I'm here. Let's just say we stop it here. What are the chances that God's going to let us down now? He's not just letting us down, he's letting down all of history. All of the entire history of human existence on earth. Because he's been batting 1,000. He never has missed a single step. Every single thing it said has come true. You heard the 7 wonders. It's all happened. Everything's happened. There's very little left to happen. I mean, we're talking about a construction company is about all we need at this point. Seriously. It is our country. I mean, any other country wouldn't be thinking twice about such a thing. The only thing missing now is a construction company. And obviously some government courage. Real nationalism, not the just flying flags around nationalism. We're talking about the stuff that Americans are made of, where you back it up with guns and some brawn, nationalism. No other country lives nationalistically except for, we're the only ones who are weird like this. Guys, we're there. This is the worst time in the ever to jump off this train. You know what this is like? This is like a train heading into Grand Central Station, and the first cars have all made it in, and so they're in Grand Central, and you're in some back car, and you're getting nervous that maybe you ought to just jump out. Because how do I know the train's going to make it? And the person next to you is going, dude, most of the train's already in the station, man, don't jump out. And you're like, no, I don't think it's going to make it. You're like, it did make it. Okay, yeah, our car's got to get in too. No, I'm jumping. Because that's what most people are doing today. Think of all your friends who aren't here right now. People you know, people you grew up with, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins. Most people today are jumping off the train when the train's already arrived in Grand Central.
What's at Grand Central?
It's a train station in New York. Mashiach. Which requires certain things, but most of them are done. Okay, it requires, getting the land, building the site, majority of Jews in the land, which is happening this year, basically, and the big one, which is world peace, but that's probably only going to come after something heavy. And we're there. This is the time to buckle down. I don't know what it's going to take from every one of you, but I suggest a few things. Number one, get involved in the big 3. Every chance you get involved in the big 3. Shabbos, kosher, and saving yourself to marriage. Those are the big 3. Shabbos, kosher, and save yourself till marriage. Give your spouse the gift that you're actually whole when you get married. Don't waste it, don't blow it. Don't fall into Esav's immediate gratification. Save yourself till you're married. Those are the big 3. Another hint. Learn Torah. Learn as much Torah as you can possibly learn. Literally fill yourself with Torah study. If that means making some difficult decisions on what your plans were in the next year or two, who cares? You've got to be informed for this. Your families are counting on it. What's going on over there? I'm not touching the button anymore. Your families are counting on it. Probably most of your families are freaking out you're even here. That's how far gone we are. Meaning we're here in history, and probably the majority of the people who hear this material's families are freaking out that they're hearing this material. And when in the end, you are their last hope. You are the last one. It's your decisions that you'll make based on the information you're hearing in your trip to Israel, and especially today's information. It's the decisions you'll make, and I don't care how old you are. I don't care if you're 16, I don't care if you're 40, I don't care if you're 70. It's the decision you'll make based on this kind of information that will put your family on the map of history or have them fall into the dust of history just like the Egyptians and the Romans and the Greeks and the Babylonians and all the others and the Nazis and all of them. You can do this. And I'll tell you, when I did it, you had to do it a lot on your own. It was many years ago, a couple of decades ago. Today, forget it. There's nowhere you can go where there's not someone helping you do it. I don't care what campus you're on. I don't care if you're in Las Vegas. There are people to help hold your hand and get you through this process of just simply being totally tuned in to these great times. We're in great times. Doesn't require a black hat. Doesn't require any certain kind of, you don't need these babies. You don't need nothing. Just a lot of Torah study and get yourself as close as you can. Every time you got a choice, just try to get closer and closer to more community, more Shabbos, more people who know. Get mentors who know a lot of Torah, otherwise known as rabbis. Get yourself a Rav and just go for it. We have great times ahead.
Come to Israel.
Oh yeah, another biggie. Another biggie is just move here. Just move here and be here for those times. This is the time to come. Yeah, you come. I tell people all the time when I tour the U.S., I say, you can come now with all your stuff, or you can come later with what you're wearing. Now's a good time to move here when you can still come with your stuff. You don't have to just fly out with, in your boxers, with the Gentiles like chasing you onto your flight, with spears. Thank you very much.